take public comment next. Steve, we're at public comment. You said you had a comment on H2?
I'll comment. I would like to comment. This kind of allocating a certain amount of energy to the geothermal production could be a blessing to Lassen County.
State your name for the recorder.
Steve Pizzulo. I'm a big supporter of biomass, and I've been that way for a lot of years. And I think that the biomass industry does need help, but they need some kind of political support. Maybe some board members should get active in the Forest Service or the state level to tell them how much we need that. But we have a untapped resource here, geothermal in Lassen County, that is immense. And with the passage of this bill, it could bring, and it should bring, a major amount of development. It should increase the property tax basis, and it should also add a lot of jobs to the area. Now, we know the federal government is pushing along the same way. They want to see their military bases go geothermal. They want to do renewable resources. Well, with the Hurlong Army Depot so close to a geothermal resource, it could be possibly the first base in the country to go fully geothermal. There's currently a plant out there that's capable of producing 3.5 megawatts. It's producing a 0.9 megawatts because of some line problems. But that would be enough to run Hurlong itself. That plant is also approved for 30 megawatts, which would be enough to run Lassen County, Hurlong's, the base of Hurlong, and Plymouth Sierra Rural Electric. And the cost would be very inexpensive. So by you writing that you don't want this geothermal development or you don't like it, and are concerned about the timber, I mean, I'm concerned about the biomass, but this is big time stuff. And we have it all over Lassen County. It's just developing it. This might be the boost in the arm, the energy credits, the incentives from the state to build and start building this program within the county. So I think before you do this, you should really look at the effect that you're causing on the county and how much in jobs and property base you could lose, and just construction, and keeping that military base from the future, what do they call it, racking, because it will come up for rack again. But if it's fully geothermal and it's fully renewable energy, it's going to have a higher rating, I believe, within the military for base closures. So I really would like you to think about what you're doing on this one. It may just look like a little item, but I think it's a huge item for Lassen County, especially being out in that area now. Any questions?
So I know that they got geothermal out there by the bases. Would the base, have they looked at themselves and drilling test holes and developing their own geothermal, or do they rely on outside individuals to buy their power from? I don't know.
Well, I believe they would rely on outside individuals. Because
They
it's already
provide their
going.
power from outside individuals. They're not in the business to be a utility company.
Well, but they had their own resource there, would they put in their own, and build their own generation just for their own use? I mean, I granted they wouldn't sell the power to Elba, but to power their own base.
I don't believe so. The only way I think they would do their own base would be solar. Geothermal is a whole different ballgame. And there is abundance of geothermal in that area already, and there is enough there to handle the base at this time. It just has to be wheeled to the base. And with the military putting in all these incentives for the bases to go to renewable resources, it's a natural for Hurlong. And then again, that will help on, I believe, any future racking, where they start chopping the base down smaller and smaller. If this base fits all the requirements and exceeds what the government expects.
Sierra Army Depot was one of the 7 installations that was designated as 100% green. So that they do have to head that way.
And one other question, I don't know who could answer this, anybody could. The groundwater out there was a contamination, and you got that plume, I mean, is the geothermal, is that part of that groundwater contamination?
No. No, that's it's towards Turtle Mountain where that plume is. You probably end up in Nevada when
If you
business
started-
starts starting their pumps up.
If we start doing geothermal, I mean, would that suck the plume back the other way?
I'm not a hydrologist.
There's distinct reservoirs, and the the Department of the Army gave you that in your 2003 plan for Hurlong, and the extra, they gave you a complete analysis of all the groundwaters in the Hurlong basin, and where the geothermal is, where the clean water is. I know there's two large deposits, one at a geothermal at 1,200 feet and the second one at 3,000 feet. The people that we're leasing to now are using the one at the 1,200 feet. They haven't even gotten to the 3,000 foot one.
Believe it
And
or
they're
not, they're
giant.
pumping molasses into that plume, and the molasses is eating up the contamination. Believe it or not, that's true.
Yes, I really would like you to reconsider that.
I would just remind the board that this letter, the proposed letter is to the California State Assembly, and it's a follow-up to, in May, the board sent a letter to the Senate when the bill was being heard by the Senate in opposition to the same bill, so just so you're aware. The board's already taken a position. If you want to change it, we can correct that.
Mark had requested that we put this on the agenda, and I think, I understand, Mr. Zulo's concerns, and if you don't mind, since this was my item, I would like to put it on next week and give Mark an opportunity to, address some of Steve's concerns, so we don't,
Pull the trigger on something that.
yeah, I think those are very valid concerns, and I'd like Mark to weigh in on.
And I'd also like to make a comment on August 5th and 6th, there's going to be a national geothermal conference, federally attended by Nevada and California, which I intend on attending. I believe that we have a resource in geothermal that's pretty close to unmatched. And if anybody wants to tag along, that'd be great.
Okay, so if it's okay with the board, I'd like to put this on next week for a time certain. That way, if Steve wants to come again, Mark can come.
Do you have a particular time, or should I?
I think just the early first available, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
We have 10:15, no, we have 10:30, so 10 o'clock.
10.
Okay, thanks. All right, thanks, Steve. All right, let's take up the sheriff's items, H3. Okay.
Thank you.
Steve. Yeah, maybe in the future, I think it'd be really good if it's not on the consent item, anything for the sheriff, we put it in the reserve them for tonight.
Well, this is tough. We knew we had a lot of items, and we appreciate you trying to get us up, but, obviously I'd rather get the public out of here than us when we can, so.
I feel bad seeing you guys here.
We'll start.
Okay, start with H3, that's a contract between us and Walton's Colonial Mortuary for removals on coroner's cases. We handle, just to give you guys an idea, in calendar year 2013, we had 166 death investigations. Now, not all of those turned into a full-blown coroner's case. Most of those result in response, where we'll show up and make a determination whether or not it is a coroner's case or something that needs a further investigation. But obviously, with almost every death that occurs in our county, the Waltons is the only local vendor they're the only local mortuary. They come, they provide the removals. There are times when people have made arrangements with other mortuaries, typically in the north end of the county. We've had some come out of Shasta, we've had some come out of Plumas. But by and large, Waltons does this. They have done this for a long time. This is one of those things, gentlemen, we're working to try and clean up and really formalize things that have been in place for a long time, but there just hasn't been all of the documentation. So this will really just kind of fortify a long-standing business relationship with Waltons. But it is the first time it's come before the board.
For every death, does there have to be a investigation? Do they have to do that?
Well, we have to at least, we go to most death scenes, and as we work with the local hospice groups, if someone's, they give us a list of people.
Certainly no.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they're on that list, we don't necessarily send our people. But the hard part, with even sometimes when there are expected deaths, we get there and they haven't been seen by a doctor within 20 days, it automatically becomes a coroner's case. And so it's complicated, but we've done a lot of training to try to cut down on the number of cases we investigate as coroner's cases.
Right.
We've made some real headway,
Yeah,
you know, with training and
yeah.
with our staff primarily, but.
And specific to this, when Kevin Jones was going through as the acting captain, this was part of his project, was to work on the coroner's program. And he did a ton of work here with Walton's and actually cut our county costs by more than half
That's why I asked.
in the removals.
Yeah, we could have with that. And
Okay.
we do work with people, if they, like John said, if they have arrangements with another mortuary for removal, and sometimes it's out of the area. You know, we've had them come from Stockton or other places, but if they've had arrangements made, we don't want to cost them any additional money, and we wait for that removal, so.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Alrighty. Okay, so, thank you guys. The action request is to approve and authorize the CAO to sign.
I'll make that motion.
Been moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Jim and Aaron are absent. Okay, we'll move on to H4.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, this really just kind of solidifies a long-standing relationship. We have to, in certain circumstances with coroner's cases, there has to be a post-mortem examination that depends on the case. Some are a full-on forensic type examination by Washoe. Some of them are as simple as an external view of the body and review of medical records. So there's a wide range of things that happen there. Clearly, Washoe, we've done this with Washoe, we've done it with Shasta over the years, but Washoe is, it's a good option, it's the best option. It's the, you know, we don't have a mountain range between us and them, so especially in the wintertime, sometimes we have to attend these autopsies, and it's,
They provide a good service. We've used Shasta, we've used them in the past, and then we started having problems when, you know, their office was basically getting overworked and there were excessive delays. We used them in the last couple of years on one case, and they did pretty good, but when we talked to them about it, they indicated that, you know, they basically have quotas. And obviously, if we need the service, we need the service, and we can't worry about, you know, them exceeding their quota. So in Washoe, we do get great service from them. So.
Any questions of the public? Okay, it's the pleasure of the board. Action request is approved and authorize Sheriff Dean Brown to sign.
I'll make the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Supervisor Chapman and Goldbauer. Okay, item H5.
fee schedule. So, Mr. Chairman, some of this is in response to the discussions that have not taken place at the Budget Committee and talk about, you know, the expenses versus the revenues. We have, there's a couple things that were real key now. With, in a post-realignment era, we're using alternatives to custody more now than we ever have. We have an arrangement where we put ankle monitors with GPS tracking on the lowest level offenders to try and get them to serve their sentence, to burn their own power, to eat their own food, to take their own pills, to take some of the burden off of the county coffers. So that's really what started this, is we, right now, that the county, specifically out of that CCP budget, is picking up the tab on electronic monitoring. So we started really trying to do a fee study to figure out what does it cost us to put that service out there. And then from there, we went ahead and studied across the board throughout the sheriff's office, because, you know, short answer is we don't think it's our place to cherry pick the easy ones like the inmate fees. In essence, really, it's the board's decision. It's the board's discretion to decide if any of these are something that the board has an interest in. So that's why we brought this to you very open-ended, not in the form of an ordinance today to say, here's a proposed fee ordinance, but here's the fees. We studied these things. We put a time schedule on them. If you have an interest in trying to recoup the cost for some of these services, that's the pleasure of the board. So we crafted this very open-ended, and it is your, obviously it's the pleasure of the board. If you want some, none, all, we don't really have a dog in the fight, but we thought it was important to bring it to the board for review.
What are the possibilities of actually collecting them?
Well, so Tom, on the electronic monitoring, We can't use that as any piece of eligibility. If somebody can't pay, we can't use that as part of our criteria to allow them to participate or not.
Sorry about the bad luck.
But, you know, there are some, we've had some that, you know, are very good candidates for electronic monitoring and have every ability to pay.
They have
So-
good jobs, and not just electronic
Well,
monitoring,
then you're, because you happen to be working and stuff, you have to pay, but you're not working, so you don't pay.
The fee waivers are fee waivers are part of our lives. I mean, it's just something that we're stuck with.
So the offender fees, obviously, there is more work associated with managing these programs too. And long-term, like our Sheriff's Work Alternative program now, we assign them out to different work sites around the county. Eventually, what I want to do is be able to get an inmate work crew going again. So the goal is, through some of these offender fees, to be able to pay for a correctional officer, the supervisor crew again, and then have those people on swap, report to the jail, and go out to work under supervision each day. And that's sort of the long-term goal. But I think the offender fees are, they are important, and hard part is, we're trying to remain neutral on this and just inform you. It is unfortunate that the other supervisors had to go, and I don't know if it might be good to carry this one over to the future.
What's the county council think?
He thinks a lot. About a particular topic?
Obviously, truly, the most controversial on
Not to
there.
put you on the spot or anything.
Well, I don't know that it's for me to express an opinion on it. I think it is a presentation that's being made by the department head, that he's looking for approval from this board. There's some concern expressed that we don't have 2 of the 5 present. Whether you choose to pass upon it at this time or not is your prerogative.
I'd like to chime in, yeah. We, as you said, the fiscal impact, it's an undetermined amount of new revenues to general fund. And Bob, you and I know all too well, being on budget committee, how important it is for new revenues to the general fund. And I personally would like to accept your recommendation, to capture fees where we can and move forward.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to almost be neutral here. There's a couple ones that are gonna be controversial. One is gonna be fees for concealed weapons permits. That one's gonna be pretty controversial that's on there, just to tell you right up
Well, I
front.
think we should take this in its current form and get it in front in a form where we can make a decision and act on it. So this is it for information now. I'd like to go forward to the next step, which time we'll have a full board and we could get some,
And then the next step would be bringing forth an ordinance
Yes.
to establish the
and we could have further discussion at that time, but at least we can move forward. Doesn't mean that the full board's gonna be in agreement or disagreement, but at least we could move the ball forward, which I think is important.
My only worry there, Mr. Chairman, is if we bring it forward in an ordinance, and obviously feel free to correct me, Bob, but it's an all or none proposition at that point. So if we bring back this in its entirety in the form of an ordinance, I don't know that they have line item veto ability at that point,
No.
or do they?
No.
bring back a draft ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you bring back a proposed ordinance, and there's a question about a clause or a sentence or one particular amount, say in concealed weapons permits, and the board expresses that they would want to see a change in that number before they would feel comfortable at least introducing it in the first step of the introduction, or in the first step of the passage of an ordinance, adoption of an ordinance, you're further off than you are today.
Well, we
That's my
hoped,
view of
obviously,
it.
we were hoping all 5 would
Right.
be here and
Give us some
give
guidance.
us some guidance so we could bring back a pretty workable ordinance, but clearly it's,
Uh-huh.
Where do you not come up with it, other counties doing this, is that where?
Now, what we did is, the government code requires you, if you're establishing fees, to do a time study, correct, John?
can only recapture our true costs. So we actually did time studies on these, Bob, so something like the CCW, you'll see there's, a piece of that gets touched by, the clerk, a piece of that gets touched by the sergeant that does the interviews with the person, a piece of that gets touched by the sheriff who ultimately approves it. So we tried to capture each, piece of that puzzle for,
And that's why we thought if we were doing the offender fees, it wouldn't be right for us not to do time studies across the board and show you the whole spectrum, and then get input from you on what you'd like to see come back.
I don't have a problem trying to collect the fees at all, but I just question whether you're ever gonna do it, and if you're gonna expend more money trying to collect the fees than you are gonna get actual money.
Some of them you'll get on the front end because they're fees for service.
Okay, those kind, yeah.
Sealed weapon.
Yeah,
you
you
gotta pay
could-
it.
they should be paying the cost of what it costs the county to administer the concealed weapons. But, I mean, the offenders, I don't.
Well, some of them, yes, some of them, no.
Yeah.
It's a start, it's a start.
We won't collect any if we don't have the fees established, I know that.
That's true.
And historically, Tom, we did pretty good on work furlough. The inmates that spent the
Yeah.
night in jail and went out to work, we're really trying to get away from that. Because every time those inmates, we open the door and let them back in,
They bring
that's
it.
a chance to introduce contraband.
Yeah, and it also
And it
costs
takes
you money
out,
because you
and
gotta mess with them.
it takes people time.
Yeah,
So if we
yeah, I
can put them on an
understand.
ankle and get them out to work, they keep their job, we cut the costs, and we can charge them the fee to wear that GPS tracker.
All right, so the action will provide direction, I think we've done that. Christian, so we'll move on to, thank you guys for your efforts there. No, I think we're gonna move forward with the draft ordinance.
So is that the pleasure of the board that you propose an ordinance, a draft ordinance, with the numbers that you have put in previously, and we'll see if we can get consensus or not?
And we'll be able to vote at that time, we're gonna make some changes and stuff, and just kind of move forward from where we're at now.
We don't need a motion to on an order.
No, I don't think so, just provide
No.
direction.
We'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item H. I don't believe I asked for any public comment. Was there any public comment on item H5, fee schedule, before we move along? Okay, so we'll move on to H6, budget.
These are partial budgets, Mr. Chairman. You approved earlier in your consent agenda the microwave repeater as part of the Homeland Security grant. Because of some of the milestones and targets with that program, we need to keep purchasing. And, we're hoping, obviously, that we have a budget, but if we don't get that knocked out here in early August, that could slow down that process. So that's for part of it. The one is specific, so we can keep buying on that Homeland Security grant there with Eric Ewing is here today, because we're working closely with him on these Homeland projects. And then the second part of that budget is for the motor pool. You also, there was an insurance replacement on the agenda today to fix a broken car. There's another one of those pending. So there again, the sooner we can get those ordered, it takes an awful long time to get them. So if we can get a partial budget, we can make the capital purchase now and not have to put it off for another month or 6 weeks while we're waiting for the budget.
I'll second.
Is there any public comment on this item before we take action? So it's, okay, it's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Supervisor Chapman and Allbauer absent. Okay, item H7.
That's the motor pool policy. Once again, this is something that really kind of just puts, memorializes long-standing practices. The motor pool has been in operation for more than 20 years. We use the inmate labor to help with a lot of the routine maintenance on all of the county fleet, with the exception of the road shop and the DA's office. So the cars come in, they get the lube and tune, they get the standard services, they get, there's an awful lot of work that goes on in there. And then every department pays into that fund for the maintenance and the replacement of vehicles. And last year when the state controller's office came up, they had chatted with the auditor because there wasn't a good, policy adopted by the board. There's an old Magna Carta document that, from Ron Gerald and Bill Bixby from 20 years ago. So we worked with Mr. Egan. He put that on with his, as a part of the department heads meetings. He convened the agenda, or the policy committee, which is comprised of 3 elected and 3 appointed department heads. There was better attendance than that. We had, I think, most of them present. So this policy's been vetted with all of those folks. They are, for the most part, the end users for the motor pool. The biggest user is HSS. The second biggest is us. And it passed muster through the policy committee, so it's here today for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
I'll second.
Any public comment on this item? All right, it's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And Supervisor Chapman and Allbauer absent. Okay, well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I apologize, we got where you're at. There's just a letter for
Right,
just receive and file.
it's just correspondence.
Okay, oh, just on the housing element.
Right.
Okay, very good. Any comment on this? No. Okay, very good. So, all right, so there's an appointment, F1.
Yes.
This person, her term expired, and she'd like to stay on the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, any public comment on item F1? All right, the moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and Supervisor Chapman, I'll follow that. Did I miss anything?
I just have one.
H. That's you.
I just have one. For the board's information, I met with our Health and Social Services staff yesterday, Christy Myers and Bethany Edholm. They are preparing a disaster preparedness summit appropriately on September 11th. And this will be a event at the Veterans Memorial Building for the public to come and hear, how the communities, what steps we've taken to prepare for disasters. They're gonna have some breakout sessions. It's an all-day event. They're gonna have some breakout sessions, one of them tailored particularly to elected officials, county and city managers, and department heads, as far as what roles each people play, who to go to for public and those sorts of things. I think it's a great idea for as many of us to attend as possible. If more than two of you wish to attend, I would suggest that we, and I have one for each of you, suggest that we agendize that as a special meeting. I plan on attending, and I also plan on asking the two ladies to come and give a brief, but a little more lengthy description of what exactly is going to happen. So just wanted to advise the board of that, and if you think that's something that more than two of you will attend, we will act accordingly and agendize it so we can do that without violating the Brown Act. That's all I have today. We do have.
Okay. So, are we gonna recess now till 1:30?
I would suggest we recess till,
You want to-
Still on closed
do
session?
we do 1:15 and then try to finish up our closed session by 1:30?
Sure.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll recess.
Till 1:15?
Yeah.
Sounds good.